60 Minutes Rewind.
Iran, where we have spent this past week, is a country of immense significance to the United States. Her oil reserves, second largest in the world, the $15 billion worth of sophisticated American arms that she possesses, her strategic position in the Persian Gulf, her 1,300-mile border with the Soviet Union. All this means that when there is trouble in Iran, that is trouble for the United States. And there is big trouble in Iran now. The week began with riots, trashing, burning by the opposition to the Shah. It ended with the Shah's secret police, the Savak, arresting the major opposition figure inside the country, Karim Sanjabi, as he was about to call on the Shah to leave Iran to make way for a democratic Islamic state. There is discontent across the entire spectrum of the population of Iran. The oil workers have been on strike, though some came back today. Journalists are out to protest censorship. The school teachers are out. The universities are shut down. But it is the Muslim holy men who spearhead the opposition. And we begin our report in downtown Tehran at one of the headquarters of the Muslim movement. The people in this group are hiding their faces because they do not want to be able to be identified by Savak, by the people of the Shah. They are members of the Muslim movement, united in their determination to bring down the Shah. All of them are professional people or students at the university.
Why are you people so against the Shah? An outsider comes here. He sees buildings going up. He sees a certain amount of prosperity in the city. Iran moving into the 20th century. What's wrong with
Yes, there's an outsider who comes to Iran who definitely would not see what is going deeply within the people.
And that is?
And that is the misery, and that is injustice and lack of freedom.
Will the fighting go on until the Shah is out? Or do you think with the military government here in Iran now that you're going to have to bide your time for some months or some years?
I think the fighting will go on. And they will fight till their last drop of blood.
Naturally, we wanted to talk to the Shah about what these dissidents had to say. But though he is ordinarily the most accessible of leaders, he would say nothing. But the last time we talked with him, 2 years ago at his Niavaran palace, he was pleased to speak of the bond between him and his people.
I'm not afraid of my people. It's not a political campaign. I'm not going to look at the polls tomorrow to see if I'm 2 degrees higher or lower. And that's because this confidence exists between me and my people. They trust in me, I trust in them. I believe that I know the job, so I'm not trembling.
But last Sunday, had his people been polled, the Shah would have been dismayed at the results. For thousands of Iranians, most of them young, rampaged through the streets of Tehran, shouting down with the Shah, death to the Shah. There was genuine fury here. A protest not simply for political freedom, but against low wages and high inflation, against huge military expenditures, against corruption and foreign influence. Caught up in this orgy of burning and destruction were not only the Muslim militants, but others beside them, students, workers, and of course some hooligans bent on a violent holiday. But it was rumored that in the chaos of the day, paid government agents were here too, torching some of the buildings, hoping to spawn a backlash against the mob to give the government license to crack down. Also torched last Sunday was what is now this pile of rubble. 4 days ago, it was the headquarters building of the National Iranian Gas Company. It went unprotected by the Iranian military, by the Tehran Police Department, by the Tehran Fire Department. And yet, just 200 yards down Roosevelt Boulevard here is the American Embassy compound. As you can see, not a dime's worth of damage done inside. Why? Because the American Embassy compound was protected by Iranian military police. It was one of the few buildings in Tehran to be so protected. It was apparent that the Shah was expressing gratitude for the support offered him by President Carter. Within 24 hours of Sunday's mayhem, tanks and troop carriers rolled. The civilian prime minister was replaced by a military government. Tehran became a very quiet city. The military had moved not only against the rioters, but equally, in effect, against this venerable holy man sitting thousands of miles away in a Paris suburb. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini is a churchman who has spent 15 years in exile from Iran. He condemns the Shah's corruption and dictatorship and attacks the United States for supporting him. When he speaks, millions of Iranians listen. He tells them the Shah should be arrested, tried for crimes against the state, and ousted, and that a Muslim state should be established. Since there have been no opposition political figures to whom the masses could turn, they looked instead to their holy men for political leadership.
It's been a period of great social upheaval. Thousands of migrants have left villages to come and work in urban areas.
Iranian scholar Dr. Shal Bakash.
Young men and women have been picked out from villages and small towns and entered universities in urban centers. People are working in new occupations. The family structure is being put under great pressure. Naturally, at times like these, people cling to what is more familiar. They go back to their traditional beliefs.
But it is by no means just the traditional Muslims who oppose the Shah. It is some of the new rich, too, the new middle class, who have been the chief beneficiaries of Iran's economic boom. Coveys of millionaires have been spawned here the past half a dozen years. But there are many among the bourgeoisie who are repelled now by the ostentatious luxury and by the flagrant corruption. And besides that, they don't want to live as political eunuchs, forbidden to indulge in political give and take.
They have become richer, which is natural. Nowadays, they can send their children to school, they have enough to eat, but they want also another right, the right to be able to speak freely and to choose their elected government.
Javan Alamir is a wealthy businessman and politician.
All right, Mr. Alamir, please tell me, what is so horrid about the Shah?
What is so horrid about the Shah? It's the terrible thing that has happened in Iran during the last quarter of century. We had the worst repression known in the history.
You mean that the repression, the torture, the cruelty of the Savas under
the regime during the last 25 years
has been worse than
anywhere in the world. And you have to add to that the corruption, which was on a scale never equaled in the history. I mean, by percentage of the national wealth, what has gone to the corruption, what has gone because of the corruption to foreign and local companies is something unbelievable. And the figures are there.
But isn't it a fact that many Iranians prospered under the Shah?
We believe that 85% of the earning of the nation went to 5% of the population. The majority of the population was not even touched by what is called the wave of the petrodollars. Still in the last 5 years, people in the Khuzestan, in the Sistan and the Mokran provinces, in southeast and southwestern west of Iran, are dying of hunger. People in Mokran and in Sistan, they do not have the minimum requirement of calorie per day.
Yeah, but those aren't the people who are in the streets here in Tehran last week. Those are people who are living in apartments, who are going to school, who have the opportunity to go to the university, who are driving cars. The traffic in this town is as bad as any place in the world. One senses that particularly in Tehran, there's a certain degree of prosperity.
Exactly. The revolution which happened in Tehran, it's not a communist or a socialist revolution. It is a liberal revolution. The people who are revolting are the people, the new middle class people.
The story will continue after this.
The Shah, who had in years past, as these pictures show, been preoccupied with his military might, who has one of the most powerful military machines in the world, told his nation this past week that he has heard their demands. He has already cut back on military purchases. He told them that his military government is only a temporary measure, looking forward to free elections. And he went on television to promise that the excesses and corruption of the past will stop. It is from real estate developments like this one going up in North Tehran that the Shah's family is said to have enriched itself illegally over the years. But this past week, the Shah has moved apparently to try to prove to critics that he is serious about cleaning up corruption here. First, he has appointed a commission to look into the dealings of the Pahlavi Foundation, his family's foundation, and to look into the personal financial dealings of members of the royal family. If it is found that there has been illegalities involved, the money, the Shah has said, will be turned back to the people of Iran. And over 50 men who have been leading figures in the political and business establishment here have either been arrested or warrants issued for their arrest. Included is a former prime minister, a former head of the Savak, the secret police, and a former chief of Iran Air. He is reported to have committed suicide. It remains to be seen just what action will be taken against those named and charged. There's a huge American community here, perhaps 45,000, but at least 3,000 of them have left in recent weeks. They're scared. Bill Layfeld has lived here 10 years. He's president of the Iran-American Chamber of Commerce. I understand that there have been threats against Americans, against their lives, those who stay on.
There have been threats, but not just against Americans. It's an anti-foreign, generally, feeling, not just specifically directed towards us.
And how are these threats delivered?
Well, on occasion by telephone, on occasion by leaflets passed out on the street, and in some cases letters.
And what do they say? Get out?
Get out in a certain amount of time, or else. Now, what the or else means, we don't know.
Should the Shah survive?
It is in the interest of the nation for the time being, yes.
To
And
survive.
if it changes, I think we want a monarch.
Not as dictator, but as constitutional monarch.
As a dictator, he should not survive.
As a constitutional
He should.
monarch? A figurehead?
A head of state.
In other words, you need the Shah.
We need the monarchy.
You find it difficult to say you need the Shah. You need the monarchy.
Yes. We need a monarch, we need a ruler, we need a king who abides by the Constitution. If the Shah abides by the Constitution, we will be for him.
And do you believe that he has now seen the light, that he will abide by the Constitution?
We hope.
Mr. Alamir's hope for a constitutional monarchy would seem futile for now, inasmuch as the Shah's military government is still cracking down hard on dissidents, while much of the opposition remains unrelenting in their demand that the Shah step down. Incidentally, a few hours ago, we talked by telephone with a longtime member of the Shah's imperial court who is now in a foreign capital, and he told us that tomorrow he will assert publicly that the Shah had personal and direct knowledge of the torture and killings of Iranian dissidents by the Savak, and that such Savak activities had the full approval of the Shah. The Iranian official said that he will ask for asylum in the country where he intends to make his public statement.